Today on MTG Unpacked, we're taking a look at the Second Sun Control Challenger deck. So this is really the polar opposite to the red aggro Hazoret deck we looked at the other day. So this is a white-blue deck, obviously control strategy, so you're trying to get rid of creatures and negate spells right up until you can finish off the game. So what do we have here? Do whatever it takes to stay alive until you can cast a second Approach of the Second Sun and win on the spot. Counter your opponent's key spells and neutralize any threats your opponent lands on the battlefield as you build toward victory. So you get a 60 card deck, 15 card sideboard, and it's supposedly pretty competitive, although I will say as far as control goes, there's a lot of different ideas about strategy. The main one is just keep countering your opponent's spells. So that's the classic nope. So when they want to cast something, you're always nope, nope, can't do it. So let's take a look. We've got a nice box here, a white spin down. Let's get Gideon and Jace out of the way. And what else do we get in here? Okay, so that is empty. We get our sideboard cards, we'll put those aside. Quick reference. And what is this? Challenger deck. Okay, so nothing exciting there. And the deck proper. We'll go through this. I'll also talk about some improvement options and things to worry about when you're playing the deck. So let's go to the mana base. I think they mixed in anything else here? Nope. Okay, so we'll start off with the lands. We have Field of Ruin. So this one you can add colorless mana to your mana pool, pay 2 and tap, sacrifice it, and destroy a non-basic land an opponent controls. And then each player searches his or her library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. So you're just destroying some of your opponent's non-basic lands to make it more difficult for them if they've got a multicolour deck. Next up we have Ipnu Rivulet. Add colorless mana to your mana pool. You can tap, pay a life, and you get to add blue to your mana pool, or you can also pay 1 and a blue, tap, sacrifice a desert, and the target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So that can be used with a bit of a mill strategy with Fraying Sanity, for instance, but that's really not the purpose of this deck. This is almost pure control with the Second Sun win condition. So islands, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of those. And plains, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, that seems like a decent mana base there. We'll see as we go through this what that will be used for. So Settle the Wreckage, this is a nasty one. So you pay 4, that's 2 colorless and 2 plains. Instant exile all attacking creatures target player controls. So this is actually pretty good against the aggro decks. If they're attacking with lots of small creatures, you can just exile them all. That player may search his or her library for that many basic land cards, put those cards onto the battlefield, tap, and then shuffle his or her library. So that's the downside to using that, but often that is not too much of a downside. Fumigate, destroy all creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way, so you pay 5 for that. Again, good against aggro or token strategies where you have lots of little creatures everywhere. So we get 2 of those. Oh, 3 of those. Now here is the win condition. If you're not familiar with Approach to the Second Sun, this costs a huge amount of mana. 6 colorless and a plains. If Approach to the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach to the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach to the Second Sun into its owner's library 7th from the top and you gain 7 life. So you are just trying to build up your mana to get to this point. This is your win condition. Sometimes you might want to hold on to an Approach of the Second Sun in your hand if you have another one, and you can often win the game within like 2 turns. If you cast one and then the next turn you cast the other one you have, that can be pretty fun to see your opponent's face when you do that. So we get 3 of those, I believe. Yep. Kefnet the Mindful, so we've got a god here, 5/5 for 3 mana with flying and indestructible. He can't attack or block unless you have 7 or more cards in hand. You can pay 3 in an island, draw a card, then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. So he's a sort of middle of the road god, not that exciting. I don't know whether I would drop him in preference to something else. I have a few ideas that I'll show in a moment. Irrigated Farmland, okay, so more of the mana base they're mixing in here. You get to add a plains or a island to your mana pool. Downside, it enters the battlefield tapped. So usually those are less desirable. Opt, this is a classic control card, Scry 1, so you get to look at the top card of your library. You can put it on the bottom of your library and draw a card. So a single mana for that. If you're not liking what you have in your hand, you can go and grab something else. So we have, they're going to do 4 of those, okay. Ether Meltdown, this is a bit of an odd choice, but this is Enchantment Aura for 1 on an island. You can flash it in at any time. You get to enchant a creature or vehicle. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. I'm not sure if they're doing any energy strategies here. We'll go through this. Probably not. The enchanted permanent gets -4, -0. So if somebody has a big beefy creature, you want to knock that down a bit, you can use that. Pretty much keep them down permanently, and unless they can get rid of that aura. So we have, let's see, 3, 4 of those. Censor, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. You can also cycle for blue, so discard this card, draw a card. Either way, if you're countering spells or if you're not finding what you need, control is all about bringing in the cards you need to let your strategy go off near the end of the game. So we get 1, 2, okay, full play set of those. Supreme Will, another classic control card here. It's an instant for 3 mana. Choose one to counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So you're looking to make sure that they don't have 3, so they pretty much are stuck. Their spell is countered. Or you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one into your hand and rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And I'm guessing they would have a full play set of these. Yep. So that's, you want to be doing a lot of that sort of thing. Cast Out is another good one. With Flash, pay 4. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Cast Out leaves the battlefield. You can also cycle it for a plane, so pay the cost, discard the card, draw a card. And this is pretty handy against things like the Scarab God, where they keep coming back. You just want to lock them up so they can't escape, because if they go to the graveyard they just bounce right back into your opponent's hand. So keep them exiled. We've got a play set of those. Renewed Faith for 2 and a plains, instant, you gain 6 life. You can also cycle for 1 and a plains, and when you cycle it you gain 2 life. So this is bumping up your life if you've been knocked around by an aggro deck, for instance. Glimmer of Genius, another classic control card. Instant for 4, scry 2, draw 2 cards, you get 2 energy. So that's really just searching your deck for the pieces you need. If you didn't have your second sun, for instance, or you didn't have any negates, you often see people cast this on your turn, or sorry, on their turn, and that will mean they might be able to dig up a negate or a disallow or something to stop your spell from resolving. Next up we have Farm to Market. So this is destroy target attacking or blocking creature for 3 mana. And Market, you cast this from your graveyard, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards. So another countering card there. So the main issue you're going to have, from what I see here, this deck is pretty much dead in the water. Somebody casts a Lost Legacy, they can name Second Sun. So if they see you're playing blue and white, they're like, it's probably a UW Approach deck. I'll cast Lost Legacy, naming Approach of the Second Sun. You've got to toss all of your Second Sun cards, and you do get to draw cards, but that pretty much finishes off the deck at that point. So let's dig into the sideboard, see what they have here, and then we'll go into some improvement options. So they give us another Kefnet in case you need an extra one. Regal Caracal, 3/3 for 5 mana. Other cats you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. When it enters battlefield, create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. So this could be something you want to keep in mind if you want to do a cat tribal. That's a thing. It's fun to have an army of cats coming out. So you get 1, 2, 3, a whole play set of those. So this looks like the strategy where somebody figures out, he is playing control, and then you're like, no, I'm not. On game 2, I'm actually playing creatures. So Glyph Keeper, 5/3 for 5 mana with flying. When it becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time each turn, counter that spell or ability. And you can also embalm it, meaning you get a copy of it from the graveyard, but it's a white zombie sphinx. That seems pretty decent. So you get 2 of those. Spell Pierce, another counter spell, pay 1. It's an instant counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. So if you're going up against a creature heavy, non-creature heavy deck, so they don't have many creatures, maybe you're playing against another one of these decks, for instance. Negate, counter target non-creature spell for 2. This is another staple of control strategies. They're probably going to give us 4 of those. Yep, complete playset. Another Renewed Faith, so a life gain thing. We get just 2 of those. Okay, so it's a decent deck, but from what I'm seeing, you don't have many win conditions here. You have your Approach of the Second Sun, or if you want to bring in cats, that's another option. So let's look at some cards here. We'll start off with cheaper and going to more expensive. So Essence Scatter, you might want to swap out a couple of the cards like Renewed Faith. I think we had one in here. Maybe swap out the Kefnet. This will allow you to counter target creature spell for 2. It's an instant. So I would suggest perhaps adding in a couple of those. Those are pretty cheap. Disallow, this is another classic control. The downside is you've got to pay 2 islands in addition to colorless, so you may not have 2 islands out on the board when you need it. This allows you to counter target spell activated ability or triggered ability, and this one's about $5, so a little pricier there. Then we move on to what I think is probably, gave you a bit of a peek there. Torrential Gearhulk, so you'll often see him in control. This one I think is about $12 at the time of this video. He's a 5/6 for 6 mana. He's also a good game winner. You can flash him in as an artifact creature, but beware of a Braid if you're playing against the aggro deck. When Torrential Gearhulk enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card will be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So not only do you get to flash this guy on at any time, but you also get to cast a spell from your graveyard. So if somebody, for instance, is casting something nasty you don't want to resolve and you have some negates in your graveyard or something else, you could bring this guy out and just cast the instant from your graveyard and get rid of the threat and bring one of your own threats to the fore as well. So I would suggest 2 of those for a secondary win condition. And finally, Search for Azcanta. So this is a legendary enchantment for 2 mana. This one's a bit pricier. This is $18. You might only want to have a couple of these. It depends what your budget is. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put it into your graveyard. Then if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform, search for Azcanta. So let's pop that around here, and that turns into Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin. So the deal with this is you get to add blue to your mana pool. You can also pay 2 and a blue, tap, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So you get some card draw there. You can filter out the 4 cards, pick the best one for your needs. And so it's often something you'll see in control decks. They'll do search for Azcanta. This came out in Ixalan, so fairly recent. So that is the second Sun control. Let me know in the comments if you have any other improvement options, things you would tweak on this deck. You might be more of a control player than I am, although I have been known to play that from time to time. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button for more Magic the Gathering unboxings, and be sure to tap the notification bell to be notified as soon as new videos are released, and have a great day.